Good morning. Thank you, Emma.
Of course.
Okay, I can see some of you. I can't see all of you. Weird views that I'll have to get used to as we walk through this. Good morning, everyone. I am Heather Duvall. I am the Executive Director of Amplify Youth Health Collective. My pronouns are she and her. Okay, good, it advanced. All right, so Emma and I, we got it going. Okay, so all of our technology is going to work. Thank you all for telling us how you're feeling this morning. I know that some of you might be without power. I know we're all freezing cold. Thank you for joining us this morning anyway, in the midst of all of this crazy weather. This morning, I'm going to talk a little bit about our teen birth rates and a lot of other indicators that we want to focus on. I am, like I said, with Amplify Youth Health Collective. I see in the chat, I see on the faces, we've got a lot of our wonderful Amplify staff here. So as you all want to say hi, and as we're walking through the presentation, if you have anything to add for everyone, if you have anything to add, if you have any questions, don't wait until the end. Feel free to add anything in the chat. Emma's going to be monitoring the chat for me. I'm not able to see everything all at once. And so feel free to interject anything, any ideas or thoughts that you have. Some of you might know me, some of you might not. I have been Amplify as the executive director for 3 months, just a little bit over 3 months. I was previously with the Tulsa Campaign to Prevent Teen Pregnancy as a director of programs for about 5 years. And so very excited to be back in the field, back working with all of you wonderful people as well. Amplify, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about what Amplify does in a minute, but our mission is to promote healthy futures for youth through advocacy, collaboration, and education. And our vision is to see informed youth, healthy communities, and vibrant futures. In our time this morning, we're going to talk about teen birth rate. And so we know that the teen birth rates are the critical indicator of teen pregnancy prevention and adolescent sexual health, and directly impact a variety of issues such as educational outcomes, our earning potential, family stability, economic well-being, and overall women's health. Many of these issues that are highlighted in the data lookbook from Metriarch and what this conference is about. And while teen birth rates should and will remain the centerpiece of measuring our teen pregnancy prevention efforts, like these critical programs and interventions, it's also important to assess and look at other key indicators that need to be highlighted for programs, communities, schools, grant-making organizations, all of the above. So in our time together, we're going to look at the statistics around the teen birth rates in Oklahoma, understand different types of indicators and how they're helpful in broadening the picture, and look at additional ways to track the potential of young people in Oklahoma, because that's what we want to look at, is the potential and what those positive outcomes can really be. So to tell you a little bit about Amplify briefly, we synthesize a lot of these data indicators as markers for the work that we do. And also our counterpart organization in Oklahoma City, Thrive, does a lot of the same work, because we're a collective impact organization. And we strive towards 3 overarching goals. You can see in the areas of education, collaboration, and advocacy. Under education, and there's a lot, and so this is all just going to be a quick nutshell here, but we support our partners to ensure the implementation of district-wide sex education in Tulsa Public Schools, looking at growing into new school districts and sparking new initiatives to address gaps in implementations so that we can support all young people. In sex education in Tulsa began as a pilot project in TPS in 2013-14 school year, and we were serving around 700 7th and 9th graders. And our most recent cohort in 2019-2020 served 4,432 students. So you can see a lot of progress has been happening and has been made. Also in education, we train educators from all over the state of Oklahoma to implement evidence-based curricula, as well as offer best practice trainings in the areas of positive youth development, LGBTQ+, inclusivity, trauma responsive sex education, and other topics and issues like this. In 2019, we issued 200 training certifications, but as importantly, if not more importantly, in 2020, during a pandemic with virtual training, still offered around 170 training certifications. So amazing work that's happening even in in this virtual space. Collaboration is another key goal, where everything that we do is in partnership with other organizations supporting the services that they're providing for young people. We work especially close with Tulsa Health Department, Youth Services Tulsa, Take Control, Metriarch, the Tulsa Health and Education Coalition, a lot of our partner groups, Youth Services, and facilitate the Tulsa Area Sex Educator Network. So lots of collaboration, absolutely key to the work that we do in supporting young people in our community. And advocacy, advocating to the community, school boards, policymakers about the importance of evidence-based, medically accurate, good quality sex education for the community to be advocates for this work. So in all of that work, still looking at the teen birth rates is an incredibly important metric that we constantly have our eye on. And as this community-wide collective impact initiative, Amplify gets to be in the position to look at the big picture, kind of a wide angle look at this work, to capture and share the ways that all of our various partners are operationalizing this through different issues or priorities or initiatives, so that we can connect and collaborate and leverage all these resources together. So it's a big picture view of what Amplify does and is doing in the community and in this region. So let's take a closer look at the teen birth data. So this map is based off of the preliminary 2019 numbers that have not actually been finalized by the Oklahoma State Department of Health yet, but these are preliminary. They haven't been finalized because OSDH has, of course, understandably been focused on COVID and not able to get to finalizing some of these numbers. But we can look at that, and you can see here that Oklahoma's teen birth rate is 27.4 per 1,000 females, but the US rate is 16.6. So we're going to talk about those numbers here in just a second. But what we can also know is that Tulsa County has the second largest number of teen births in the state of Oklahoma. And some zip codes in Tulsa County are nearly 5 times that national average. So this is an important piece of the puzzle for us to look at. Additionally, we rank 5th highest in the nation for our teen birth rate, and for among 15 to 19-year-olds, and 3rd highest in the nation for 18 to 19-year-olds. So the question we need to ask is, why are we consistently staying in that top 5? I'd love to be, real high hopes here, 6, 7, 8. Really love to be, in the bottom of this. But the question that we get to ask is why? Why are we still here when we're doing lots of great things? There's lots of great programs throughout the state of Oklahoma. Lots of people are working on this, supporting the work. Why are other states doing things faster and better? And so policies and programs that are happening. So that's another piece of it. But what's really exciting on the next slide is the dramatic decline that you have seen over the last 25 years. And what this graph here can show us is that we know education and access works. Nationally, teen birth rates are at an all-time low. I mean, we're talking a historic decline. Everything that's happening in the last several months is historic, right? We're all record-breaking and historic. But this is a fantastic one to look at as record-breaking and historic, because in the last 10 years, we've seen a significant decline since around 2009 for Tulsa County and for Oklahoma and for Oklahoma County. All of these numbers are really going down. But we know that progress doesn't mean to stop. We know that there's still a lot of work to do, not just in the area, the singular area and issue of teen pregnancy prevention, but in overall adolescent sexual health and well-being, looking at it holistically. So we've learned a lot in the last 7 years since we were initially formed. The Tulsa Campaign to Prevent Teen Pregnancy was formed in 2013. And we really, in 2019, wanted to look at changing and rebranding to follow the shift in the field and a desire to focus on what we're trying to promote. And that's what a lot of the things in this presentation that I'm talking about are looking at, the positive outcomes, the positive centered language that we can support. So they're really this strategic shift in both language and approach, and that's why we rebranded to Amplify Youth Health Collective. It took us broader, it took us more holistic, and allowed us to focus on this more positive language than just focusing on the deficits and the problems that were occurring. Does anyone have any questions yet? I like questions. I want this to be as interactive as possible. I know that Emma is dropping in some resources and links that I'm going to talk about on some of the further slides, but there's a lot of resources in here. And then if we share our slides later, then you can access all those resources, but she's putting those all in throughout. Thank you, Emma. So that's a lot of information about our teen birth data. What does it all mean? So when we look at all of these data indicators, and I'm getting ready to throw even more at you, we have to figure out how to synthesize this, because the whole purpose of data collection and analysis is to inform our decision-making, is to improve our policies and practices, it's to measure these desired outcomes and track trends over time. So that's great. And all of this data is incredibly important. But it's also important to figure out how to translate that knowledge into usable information that matters for different groups and different people. So I'm going to ask y'all a question, might be hypothetical. You can write the answer in the chat if you want to. I'm sorry, rhetorical. If I were to tell you that the national teen birth rate is 16.6 per 1,000 females aged 15 to 19, what would that mean to you? And there are some of you on here who know exactly what it means. Thank you, Emma. Does it mean anything?
For me, hi everybody. For me, I'm like, just like, what does 16.6 actually look like? Like,
yeah.
I know that averages are like, you get 0.6, but what is a 0.6 of
a person?
Like, I just have a lot of questions about, yeah, like I don't really know what that means.
Yeah.
I know what each part means, but I don't know what it means altogether.
Yeah, you can understand the numerator, denominator, right? It doesn't mean a lot. I think that if it on its own, it doesn't mean a lot. You need a lot of other context and information. But what if I told you that in the last 10 years, the teen birth rate has gone down by over 50%? What does that mean to you?
Is that good or bad?
That's a lot more impressive than that first number to me. That first number doesn't mean a whole lot. That the 50% is that's good. That sounds good.
Yeah, it's good. So, and I'll tell you that I'm not the data person. And so the second one is going to sound a lot better to me. I can wrap my head around it a little bit. Thank you, Colleen. She said, to me, it means that young people have more support now and barriers are being removed or navigating through. Mm-hmm. So it's important to make this data usable. And so I'm going to ask you some other questions. What if I told you that over 4,000 students in Tulsa Public Schools received sex ed last year? Is that good? What if there were like, yeah, that's good. You might ask, well, how many students were there? Is that good? Okay, you're going to ask all those follow-up questions. That's good. So we can say, yeah, it's still not enough. Thank you. But yeah, that's a lot. 4,000 students. That's fantastic. What if I drilled down a little bit further and told you that one young person in one of those classes learned about healthy relationships in their sex ed class? And because of that, they decided that they no longer wanted to stay in the relationship they were in because they realized that their partner was too controlling. So we get to drill down deeper and deeper. It's worth it. Okay. So we focus on reach because it's an important metric, and really Amplify focuses a lot on reach, and we all should, right? But when we're working with our direct service partners and direct service organizations, they get to focus in on that one student and support them. And both of these data points together is what creates our stronger communities. So all of these data points together, all of these services, all of these initiatives, all these programs together is what's going to support our community. And I'm sitting down having this presentation. Y'all can't see me, but I'm amped up about it. So we know also that there can be poor outcomes associated with early pregnancy, with unplanned or mistimed pregnancy. But when we talk about those poor outcomes, I want to underline and highlight this point, that is not an indictment of the individual themselves, but it's a strong indictment of our system that is not supporting either education and access for young people or providing adequate support for young people who are expectant or parenting. So I want to make sure that that's underlined throughout this presentation. So kind of the question then is, does the absence of an unplanned or mistimed pregnancy in the teen years then signal success? Are we done? Okay, they didn't get pregnant. Are we done? No, we're not done. Of course not, we're done. So there's a lot of other things to look at in overall adolescent sexual health and well-being. So our teen birth rates are always going to remain a major metric of our collaborative success, but we know that this overall adolescent sexual health involves far more than what we just talked about. And the curricula that we promote talks about healthy relationships and bodily autonomy and consent and empathy and goal setting and life planning and all those things that we know are really, really important for overall understanding. How am I going to grow and develop into someone who's capable and ready for adulthood? So the next slide I'm going to show you has a lot of data points on it. So while we look at the teen birth rate data, we focused a lot on just that teen birth rate data. There are a lot of other critically important sources of data that help inform us, such as the Kids Count data book, the YRBS survey, data from the Oklahoma State Department of Health, Healthy Teens OK, which synthesizes all of Oklahoma's teen birth rate data, the CDC, and a lot of others. So if you're familiar with some of these, the Kids Count data book uses teen births, tracks teen births as one of 16 overall indicators to show where we're faring for our child health and well-being in Oklahoma. And in 2020, we were ranked 45th. Now, y'all know 45 out of 50, 51, that we're not doing as well as we should. Again, in most of the health indicators, Oklahoma falls short and at the bottom. But they look at the different domains in terms of economic well-being, education, health, and family and community. The YRBS is another great surveillance system that has shown some good trends in sexual health and well-being for young people, but it's also showed us some places where we need to target more and provide more interventions. Power to Decide is used to be the national campaign to prevent teen and unplanned pregnancy, the CDC, lots of other data resources. And so we use all of these to develop programs, initiatives, and just track progress in what we're doing, all of these together. And yet still, there's still a lot of work to do. We also know that there's a lot of work left to do to address sexual health outcomes for young people. So health inequities continue to persist across racial and ethnic groups. There's still currently no mandate for sexual health education, although there is legislation this year to get health education mandated. Oklahoma is the only state that does not have just general health education as a mandate. No state dollars for teen pregnancy prevention. According to the YRBS, we can see that condom use appears to be declining and STI rates are rising for young people. Lots of bullying and harassment around gender and sexuality. So a lot of issues that we can still look at and stay tuned into. But what we're going to talk about next are what are the other data and indicators that we can pay attention to. So indicators play this essential role in determining our priorities for where we're going to invest our time and resources and money. It's important for funders to understand. It's obviously important for our government organization or government and federal to understand, but also essential for monitoring the effectiveness of what we're doing. And a good indicator has some clear components, relevant aspects, well-defined, measurable, achievable, replicable, and help us identify priority areas. But I want to underline this piece too. However, significant data gaps exist for different groups, such as young adolescents that are aged 10 to 14, adolescents who are out of school, those who are marginalized and fall outside of traditional data collection and sampling frameworks. And so if the YRBS is surveying students in school, they're going to miss some students, they're going to miss some people. So different data collection pieces still miss a lot of important young people that we need to hear their voice from. So in the next few slides, I'm going to highlight some different lenses and frameworks that we can look at to better understand the data in designing these programs. So this is a framework, the social ecological health promotion frame, but it's based off of the social determinants of health. And many of you are probably familiar with the social determinants of health. They include the different domains in which people live, work, play, worship, that can either positively or negatively affect one's health. And so I like this one because it shows all the inputs. It's really related towards young people from the individual level all the way to the societal level. It takes out that argument of, well, it's the individual's responsibility to do this, this, and that, because we know that that's not true, but this framework really sets us up to understand why. So on the individual level, do they have access? Are they talking about life goals, access to quality healthcare? What's their self-esteem and self-worth? Do they have shelter and food security? All the way to the societal level, is education promoted in their society for all young people? Do they have a sense of belonging? So all of these different frames. And this, again, I think, I don't know if I put that one in. You can just Google this Healthy Teen Network, social ecological, but I don't think I put that source in there to throw up. The next frame is an addition to the social determinants of health. ETR recently released this health equity framework, which highlights that health and education outcomes are influenced by complex interactions between people and their environments. And so it kind of takes the social determinants of health one step further in understanding where these health inequities are existing. And so health equity arises from access to the social determinants of health, where individuals who have consistently been deprived of these determinants are significantly disadvantaged from health inequities. So it's really clear to see some of these, and there's the way it's defined in terms of relationships and networks, and you can see how it is all intertwined: physiological pathways, systems of power, and individual factors. So in this concept, it's also important when we're looking at data collection services, that we also have a social justice lens around here. And so it's important to see that we view sexuality as a fundamental part of being human, that we are going to advocate for the rights of all people to accurate information, evidence-based sex ed, and the full continuum of sexual and reproductive health services. I believe strongly to my core that it is an absolutely fundamental human right that people know how their body works, especially young people when they are in the most significant stage of human development during adolescence. And so making sure that evidence-based sex ed is happening and people have access to it across the continuum. Another point is to make sure that we're not using data against communities of color and other marginalized communities. Sometimes we use the data. Are we collecting it in a way that is supporting white supremacist structures? Are we making sure that the data has the voice of the people that we are surveying involved? So paying attention to the privileges that we have in data collection, which often happens at the academic level, making sure that data collection and research supports all people and the groups that we're looking at. And make sure it's youth-centered. Everything that we want to do is making sure that it's youth-centered. Is it real? Is the data collection even harmful? Sometimes even asking the question can be harmful. So is the data, are the measurements trauma-informed that we're using? So all of these components, social determinants of health, the health equity framework, all of these pieces, making sure we have that social justice lens looking at that. And then there are other indicators that we can look at called thriving indicators. And if you're familiar with the positive youth development framework, these thriving indicators were basically the question started around, why do some young people thrive maybe in negative or difficult circumstances, and other young people have higher levels of difficulties. What are all the factors that are in play there? And so they, this whole body of work is youth development research. And so looked at risk and protective factors. So risk factors are conditions that might increase the likelihood of negative outcomes. We know that the ACE scores are in here. And then what are those protective factors, which really buffer against some of those negative impacts? And is that, you know, a community that supports our young people? If I was going to say in one sentence what I think positive youth development is, it's the whole community wrapping everything around their young people to support them to thrive and be capable. So there's a lot of resiliency research in here. And then I'm going to share with you a few different positive youth development resources in just a second. So that's a little bit more about positive youth development. PYD talks about the 6 C's for young people, that they have competence, that they're confident, they have character, caring, connection, and contribution. We could do a whole day on just positive youth development. So I'm just throwing some snippets out here so that you can get a little bit deeper understanding on these pieces. So some of the groups that are really leaders, thought leaders, have been in the positive youth development world for a long time include Search Institute and the Forum for Youth Investment. Forum for Youth Investment it was founded by Karen Pittman, who's a pioneer in positive youth development, and some of her, you know, language has always been problem-free doesn't mean fully prepared. Fully prepared doesn't mean fully engaged. So, you know, a lot of that foundational work there. But the Forum for Youth Investment, their tagline is to change the odds so that all children and youth are ready for college, work, and life. And so whatever that means, and college can mean just additional education or additional training as well. And we know that we can really change the odds for young people if we commit to upending inequities and embracing these science-informed and evidence-based strategies. Search Institute was the founder of the 40 developmental assets, and so which shows that lots and lots of research that supports and backs their work. But basically, in a nutshell, the more assets a young person has, the lower the likelihood that they're going to engage in risk-taking behavior. And the fewer assets that they have, the higher the likelihood is that they're going to engage in risk-taking behavior. So again, it's that combination of the risk and protective factors there. And then just in the last 2 weeks, the Annie Casey Foundation has released a new initiative called Thrive by 25. And they're focusing on investing in coordinating and connecting a lot of their programs. Annie Casey Foundation has, for a long time, focused on early childhood, but they're starting to broaden their scope a little bit more. And so again, the Thrive by 25, so by 25 by what might be considered adulthood. The Forum for Youth Investment has one of their biggest initiatives is called Ready by 21. So a lot of looking at what are the things that we need to do to get in place for young people to prepare them for adulthood. Act for Youth is an online training resource for practitioners who want to incorporate positive youth development into their work. The Weichert Center has a lot of evaluation tools for programs, and they're also housed under the Forum for Youth Investment. And then youth.gov is a consortium of several federal agencies who have resources around youth development. It could be funding streams, it could be a lot of just great resources. So if we were going to kind of synthesize all the work, the basic tenets of what positive youth development says is what we believe in. It's what Amplify believes in. It's what I know that a lot of the organizations from the people who are joining us today believe in. And it's basically that adolescents should have the following things to, you know, grow up prepared, capable, engaged in the world. Positive connections. So relationships are absolutely key. Supportive relationships, access to those caring, trusted adults. I can give you an example from just my life with the pandemic. When my daughter, who was in the 5th grade at the time, 6th grade now, was, you know, we were all sent home. I realized, not that I didn't realize it before, but I took it for granted, how many other wonderful adults are in her life that are not me and her dad. You know, I rely on the teachers and piano teachers and parents of other friends and, you know, all the extracurriculars that she's involved in to raise her into this community. And so when that was taken away, not only did like, oh gosh, I gotta do everything, but not capable. And it's such a miss for our young people. So not just for my personal example, but for all of our young kids that we know are experiencing so many difficulties, those positive adult relationships in kids' lives, you know, make a huge difference. If you can think about when you were a kid, think about when you were in the 5th grade or the 6th grade, you know, who were the important adults in your life? Maybe they were aunts and uncles, maybe they're, you know, someone from your congregation, maybe they were, you know, just, but they made a difference. And you can I bet all of you thought of someone immediately that was not your parent, you know, a non-parent trusted adult. We can all think about those people. And so those positive connections are incredibly important. Ensuring that young people in our communities have safe and secure places to live, learn, and play, access to teen-friendly healthcare. And we talk a lot about what teen-friendly means, but I want to see teen-friendly communities. I want to see a teen-friendly Walmart who, you know, doesn't immediately think, oh, these kids are going to, you know, steal from us, but teen-friendly communities that really support every aspect of young people's growth and development. And then opportunities for teens to engage as learners, leaders, contributing members, contributing people. So again, that active youth involvement, which again should be a central core component of all the work that we're doing. And then coordinated adolescent family-centered services as needed, because we know that life is life and there are other supports and services that young people need. So that's all wrapped up in the positive youth development piece. I have shared a lot of different data indicators, lots of data resources to think through, and just to, you know, share a few concluding thoughts. These are all important concepts that we need to look at when we're thinking about our program design, initiatives, strategies, funding proposals. We want to make sure that our funders have a clear guiding understanding of this work. It's important to consider multiple aspects of what success measures should be tracked, you know, and I put that in quote because success is a tricky word. But what are those measures that should be tracked? What we measure is what we pay attention to. And in the theme of this conference, I'd like to challenge us all to go way beyond the box and think about what we want to pay attention to. And I'm going to challenge us because I think we need to pay attention to communities unyieldingly investing in young people and paying attention to upending inequities. And let's pay attention to ensuring that our young people have access to everything they need to grow up capable, engaged, prepared, productive. Let's pay attention to systems that are supporting our young people and dismantling old systems that focus on this problem-centered language. Let's pay attention to funders that are investing in this work and continue to educate, inform them, and thank them for their investment in our communities. I have to say, let's pay attention to the tireless, dedicated individuals and teams that even through a pandemic got incredibly creative and innovative and lost sleep to make sure that our students still had access to the information and resources and the people that they needed. And let's pay attention to our young people being amazing every single day through the hardest times of anyone's life that we've ever experienced. So that's what I think, in addition to all this data, we need to continue to pay attention to. So to wrap up from the guiding points, teen birth rate is critical. We got to make the data meaningful. We get to think big with all these systems and bring them all together. Community matters more than ever, and figuring out how to keep our community connected during this time and moving forward. And we get to shape the system. We get to be a part of shaping this broader movement around adolescent sexual health and well-being. And as our conference organizers and Metriarch have stated many times, health is about the complex interactions of the whole body and mind and the communities and families and networks that we all live in. So I don't know if anyone was able to listen to Loretta Ross yesterday when she, especially her second talk about calling in. But one of the things that she talked about was calling in was doing it with love and dignity and respect. And she used a phrase that I'm going to incorporate into my life, but she said, we get to do this work with radical love. So I want us to continue, because this is how we're doing it, to do this work with radical love. So I'd like now to open with any questions or just kind of some key takeaways. What are some thoughts that you want to continue this conversation with? And I can only see like 4 of you, so let me see if I can.
Yeah, if you guys want to all kind of check out who all is in the room, thank you guys so much who have your cameras on, and really for everybody for tuning in. I'll say, Heather, this was really tremendous. All of the different data sources that you had provided, the different frameworks of how we maybe, should be looking at adolescent health work. I think that it's almost experiencing like a renaissance of all the different ways that, different types of data sources could be evaluated. Again, like the incorporations of new frameworks and things. So there's, I think, so much to think about here. Thank you so much. I'm curious if any of y'all, are you familiar with a lot of these sources? Have you guys been using some of these in your own work? What do y'all think?
I have a quick question. It's not related exactly to Emma's last question, but I'm gonna make it related. What was used? This is directed to Heather or anyone, but if any stat was used before using teen birth rate, what was the thing that people used to kind of see if our adolescents were doing well?
Well, they started tracking the teen birth rate for the CDC and National US Census Bureau from 1991. I don't know really what was going on before as a major marker. I mean, we still look at STI rates, I think probably STD rates in the 80s and 90s, maybe. Anybody else can chime in on this question too. I'm not exactly sure what would be the big marker, like the underlining marker. But the teen birth rate data is so essential because it's easily trackable. And that's another thing with a lot of these indicators is that we might want to know, but they're not easily attainable. It's not easy to get information. And that birth data is easy to get, So I think that whatever they were tracking before still was limited. And that's why they focus more on that teen birth rate. And, I don't want to, we teen birth rate, not teen pregnancy rate, and making sure that distinction is always there.
So that was my follow-up too. Like, why is there a distinction? Or I mean, there is a difference, but I wonder, because I'm thinking like, let's say someone is pregnant, but wasn't able to complete the pregnancy by choice or for whatever reason. Isn't that also like kind of reflection of how adolescents might be doing?
It is a reflection. It's not an easily attainable piece though. And there's so much to it, even to say, because, sometimes people get pregnant and miscarry before they know. And so there might even be higher instances with no ability to track that. So I think that it's not as clear of a picture on that. And so we would be basing decisions off of information that's just unclear. And that's one way to look at it. And I know that there's other factors too.
I had a comment. Maybe it's a question. One thing on that first graph that you showed with the lines going down and the success over the last 25 years, one of the things that made me think about is how many of those pregnancies or births for the 18 and 19-year-olds group were intended, how many of them were planned and wanted. And if that's the case, and if there's a way that we could ever find that out? Does that change the interventions that we're offering? I don't know. It seems.
Yeah, we do know the answer to that. Somewhere between 77 and 80% of any births are planned. So about 20% are, I'm sorry, flip it. 77 to 80% are unplanned or mistimed. About 20% are unplanned. So we do know that number, and that's CDC and Power to Decide track that a lot too. Jenny, can you add anything to that? Is that about right?
Nope, that's exactly what I've read too.
So even for adolescents, about, you know, that small percentage is planned. They intended to get pregnant.
And I think that's too, I'll just add that, you know, part of the reproductive justice framework and what Loretta was talking about yesterday is that it is true that there's about that 20% that we not sort of conflate teen births with overall pregnancy intention. I'm sorry, we not conflate teen births with wanted births. And when you start getting in, dive down that data rabbit hole of like what pregnancy intention actually means, if you ask one person versus another, you know, how their pregnancy, like how to define their own pregnancy intention, you're going to actually get different answers there. So as Heather had mentioned, like effectively births is easy to track. Intention is difficult to even define. So that's also a big reason why we sort of ended there. So I want to kind of jump in over here. Is it Colleen? Let's see, I don't know if you got your camera on, but Colleen did have a question here in the chat.
I'm sorry. Emma, do you want me to stop sharing so that maybe we can see everybody?
Either way, I think that you can click gallery view, or if you wanted to, I think that it might just naturally go to gallery view with everybody. That might work.
I had to spread mine apart. I don't know if y'all can see everybody.
Yeah, maybe if you pulled it down, we might be able to all kind of see one another. But
I'm just going to stop sharing.
Oh, cool. All right. And so what Miss Colleen had mentioned, she said, I love how you made the data personal. I think we tend to focus on the overall data, which of course is super important. And I love how you brought up specific individual examples as such as one person leaving an unhealthy relationship. We know that change is hard, but it does happen at an individual level, and that is so important. I love the individuals together, how they together create systemic change. So thank you for pointing that out. Awesome. And so Miss Stina, her comments here were that I want to find a way to talk about this data and get this information in a positive light. People get scared off by the phrase sex positive, but youth deserve to talk about this without it being about birth rates or STI data. And I love that you spoke about youth agency and the right of youth and to positive outcomes and influences in their lives.
Right. It's really uncomfortable for adults to let teens have thoughts and ideas and opinions and bodily autonomy. I think that it's very much within our societal constructs that we tell kids what to do, they comply, and then they grow up, right? That's kind of this, you know, thinking that we have to step out of, that say that they are their own person. You know, sometimes I like to say, we're not raising kids, we're raising adults. You know, that childhood is this snippet, and then their adulthood is this, and we have to give them all the tools to be adults, you know, while they're younger. They're going to figure it out. Yeah.
And so I know Tulsa has a pretty collaborative sexual health community with young people. What is something that we could be doing to either like help improve Tulsa as a teen-friendly community, not just looking at like, you know, the like, is there more outreach we could be doing to different places, or like, yeah, what's kind of something more that we could incorporate to make it more collaborative?
I'll give you a little bit in the clouds answer, and then we can probably think, you know, the people on this, you know, on this Zoom call, but I think that every person really needs to understand that they have a real impact on young people in their community, that they're not passively existing, but that of course there's people who are in youth serving organizations and education and after school programs, and they know, okay, I have an influence here. But the person at, the cashier at Walmart has an impact. Neighbors have an impact. I get kind of offended when my little 3-year-old says hi to an adult and the adult doesn't say hi back. I'm like, you're teaching her how to interact in the world. I'm not doing it alone. I just said I don't want to do it alone, right? All these people. So I think that, Sam, part of that is for everyone there could be more messaging, information that everybody in the community understands that they have a role to play in lifting up young people and interacting. And it's more than just being nice, but it's just interacting with young people and as an individual, as their own human person, talking to the kids, not talking to the parents, getting down on their level, all those things. But I think that, that level of everybody in the community, like people who work at the hair salon and people who work everywhere, that they have an impact on how kids view the world. That's really in the clouds and, kind of Pollyanna-ish, but I think that there's strategies by a lot of those youth development organizations that I shared that get into the how to do that with communities. That's it. Yeah. So Preston's talking about training trusted adults, adult champions for the young people. Yes, yes, yes.
I had something that kind of stuck out to me when you had mentioned that we get to shape the system, and then also that the work we do is like a fight against white supremacy when we're doing it right. Like that was really exciting. So I was just wondering if we could like expand on that more, because I kind of need that.
Yeah, well, I think that I'll throw out buzzwords, but it really, what I didn't say when I was saying we tell kids what to do, we expect them to comply, and then they grow up to be adults. That's very patriarchal, looking at, I'm going to tell you what to do, you're going to do it, and then we're done here. And so that's a layer of it also. But often we use communities of color to as indicators of negative health outcomes in a community. And we use that as a basis for a lot of programs and work that we do. And so are we doing that correctly? Are we doing that well? Are we doing that with the right lens? Or, so a lot of the, even just the data measurements come from, there's probably a little bit of racism built into those because of who was building those tools. That's part of it, Tammy. It's a big question.
Yeah, I know. I was like, that's definitely nuanced, I guess is the best word I can think of at the top of my head. Thank you.
Heather, I was curious. So you talked about your tenure in this field because you've been a part of the teen pregnancy prevention field of Tulsa since pretty much it started. And so like, what has changed from your perspective working in it? What can we look forward to? What are you excited about? And like, how do you see this data being moved forward?
First of all, I'm so excited about the people in this Zoom call right now, looking at you and your names and faces. But so when I first started working in the field, I was almost immediately introduced to the concept of positive youth development. It was early, it was 2001, this was hitting around, and so people were getting real excited about this because all of a sudden it was, oh, kids are doing great things. We need to highlight the great things they're doing, not just talk about the bad stuff. And so that got me real excited. And it was kind of my first introduction into the world, like, oh, we can do teen pregnancy prevention and focus on the positive things together, and it's more effective. Imagine that. So, and I also, just coming from my own experience, I grew up in a community that supported young people. It was a small community. And so I've always been trying to have an eye on how can we scale that to the larger Tulsa community or the larger Oklahoma City community or the larger state of Oklahoma, to again, emphasizing back to Sam's question, everybody in the community understands they have a role to play. Everybody buys from the school fundraiser. Everybody goes to the football games because you're supporting the young people in your community, whether it's a community of 5,000 or 5 million, you still should do it, right? And so it's another piece of it too. But I think one of the biggest trends I've seen, Preston, to answer your question a little bit more, is the focus on sex positivity. Like, not so taboo. We can actually talk about things. Even in the 7 years since Tulsa campaign started, we were scared to say certain things, and we were like, don't talk about this and don't say this out loud. And I think that just a shift in just kind of the language even has been more supportive. Like, we can say sex more often and people are less uncomfortable, not all people, but less, fewer people are uncomfortable with it. And I think that really goes to the collective work of everybody across the state saying, this is important, sex ed is important. People, need to understand how their body works. I mean, there's too many people who don't even understand how to get pregnant or how someone gets pregnant. And that's a shame. That's a shame. Shame on us adults when kids don't know how their bodies work.
Seeing lots of D's and lots of hearts. So I
Thank
think
you. This was wonderful.
So we got a couple more minutes left. If anybody has any final questions for Miss Heather. I'm just checking through here, other claps that are happening. So overall, Heather, wonderful job. Thank you so much for kind of showing us all these wonderful data resources and just this broader discussion. I know that towards the end, you were like, oh, this is very kind of like nebulous or high level, but the truth is I think it's great when we can have kind of value-based discussions about what we want for our youth and for our kids. So thank you so much for all of the, again, thoughtful data, but all the heart too. So thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you all. Emma, will we save this chat?
Yes,
I think good stuff on here.
I think there's good stuff on here. Yeah, for sure. Okay, guys, so I just want to let y'all know that we're going to kind of break here for lunch, but we're going to be back in the afternoon with more fun lady chart stuff. I believe that at 12:15, we'll have a yoga session in this room with Abby Weiss. If you would like to attend that, of course, that's optional. But no matter what, we've got wonderful third round workshops this afternoon starting at 12:30. And once again, please go ahead and check those out on your program. You should have that in your email, or if you navigate to matriarchok.org/program, you can access it there too. Once again, Heather, so wonderful to have you speak with us today. So thank you so much.
Thank you all so much.